China's tactics in consolidating control over Hong Kong can be better understood through specific examples that illustrate the extent and impact of its actions.
Please hit like button and subscribe our channel. It will motivate our team to bring more interesting content to you.
1. Undermining the one country, two systems framework. Promise versus reality. Under the 1997 Handover Agreement, China pledged to uphold Hong Kong's autonomy under the one country, two systems framework until 2047. However, Beijing has systematically eroded this autonomy. Introduction of National Security Law, 2020. This controversial law criminalizes acts deemed as secession, subversion, terrorism, or collusion with foreign forces. Critics argue it stifles dissent and undermines freedoms guaranteed under the Basic Law. Example: arrest of Jimmy Lai. Jimmy Lai, the founder of the pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily, was arrested under the National Security Law for alleged collusion with foreign forces. His media outlet was forced to close after authorities froze its assets. This signaled a chilling message to the press in Hong Kong. Example: mass arrests of activists. In January 2021, over 50 pro-democracy activists, including prominent figures like Joshua Wong and Benny Tai, were arrested under the National Security Law for organizing unofficial primary elections. These elections were intended to maximize pro-democracy representation in the legislature but were deemed subversive by Beijing. 2. Electoral manipulation. Reshaping electoral laws. In 2021, Beijing changed the electoral system to reduce the influence of pro-democracy forces, giving Beijing greater control over candidates' selection. Disqualifying pro-democracy candidates. China has barred candidates critical of Beijing from running in elections, ensuring a pro-Beijing majority in Hong Kong's Legislative Council. Example: Legislative Council elections, 2021. Beijing's overhaul of Hong Kong's electoral system ensured only patriots loyal to the Chinese Communist Party could stand for election. This resulted in a pro-Beijing majority, effectively silencing dissent in the legislature. Example: disqualification of candidates. Agnes Chow, a young pro-democracy leader, was barred from running for office in 2018 on the grounds that her party advocated for self-determination. This exemplifies Beijing's strategy to eliminate any voices advocating autonomy or democracy. 3. Suppression of protests. Example: 2019 anti-extradition bill protests. Millions of Hong Kongers marched against a proposed bill that would allow extradition to mainland China. Protesters feared it would expose Hong Kong residents to China's opaque legal system. The movement was met with tear gas, rubber bullets, and over 10,000 arrests, including key leaders. Example: siege at Polytechnic University. In November 2019, police laid siege to Polytechnic University, where hundreds of protesters had taken refuge. The confrontation, involving tear gas and water cannons, became one of the most violent episodes of the protests. 4. Curtailing press freedom. Curtailing press freedom. Several independent media outlets, like Apple Daily, were shut down under pressure. Journalists face intimidation or arrest for reporting on sensitive issues. Surveillance and censorship. Authorities have expanded surveillance, curtailed online freedom, and censored dissenting voices both online and offline. Example: closure of Stand News. Stand News, a prominent pro-democracy online media outlet, shut down in 2021 after a police raid on its office and the arrest of senior staff under accusations of publishing seditious materials. Example: intimidation of foreign journalists. In 2020, the New York Times relocated its Asia office from Hong Kong to South Korea due to increasing restrictions and fears over press freedom under the National Security Law. 5. Economic coercion. Example: boycotts against pro-democracy businesses. Hong Kong businesses that supported the protests faced targeted boycotts. For instance, Maxim's Group, whose owner criticized the protests, saw its outlets vandalized by protesters. Conversely, pro-democracy businesses faced regulatory pressure from authorities. Example: dismissals and blacklisting. Cathay Pacific, Hong Kong's flagship airline, terminated employees who were seen supporting protests, reportedly under pressure from Beijing. This highlighted the risks for individuals aligning with pro-democracy movements. 6. Erosion of education and youth activism. Example: Arrest of student leaders. Student activists, including Tony Chung, were arrested for allegedly forming a group advocating Hong Kong independence. He was sentenced to prison under the national security law. Example: curriculum changes. In 2021, Hong Kong introduced patriotic education in schools, emphasizing loyalty to China and erasing discussion of sensitive topics like the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown. 7. Legal and judicial overreach. Judicial overreach. Judges loyal to Beijing have been appointed to key positions, undermining Hong Kong's previously independent judiciary. Prolonged legal cases. Activists face lengthy trials, with bail often denied, keeping them in prolonged detention as a deterrent. Example: denial of bail for protesters. Many activists, including Joshua Wong and Agnes Chow, have faced long periods of pretrial detention under strict bail conditions. These delays act as a form of punishment even before any verdict. Example: harsh sentencing of protest leaders. In 2021, pro-democracy activist Tam Tak-shi was sentenced to prison for allegedly uttering seditious words under colonial-era laws revived by Beijing. 8. Intimidation through military presence. Example: PLA propaganda videos. The People's Liberation Army released videos showing soldiers conducting anti-riot drills in Hong Kong streets. While the PLA hasn't been openly deployed, these moves aim to intimidate and discourage further protests. Impact on Hong Kong. Exodus of residents. Fearing a loss of freedoms, tens of thousands of Hong Kongers have emigrated to countries like the UK, Canada, and Australia. The British government's introduction of the BNO, British National Overseas, visa reflects the global concern over Hong Kong's autonomy. Global criticism and sanctions. The U.S. sanctioned Chinese and Hong Kong officials responsible for implementing the national security law, including Chief Executive Carrie Lam. Countries have also revised trade policies to treat Hong Kong as part of mainland China. If you like this video, please encourage our team by clicking like button and subscribe our channel. This will motivate us to make more such videos.